Anthony, can you see our hands if we raise them on the sidebar?
Yes. I'm told, yep, you just raised it right there.
Yeah, good. All right. I will just keep doing that to annoy you then.
We'll go ahead and call to order. Alice, the first item we have is public comments. Allison had mentioned that there had not been any submitted. Allison, is that still the case?
That's correct. No public comments were submitted.
Okay, great. Next thing, I know board action was after all the presentations, but Nathan has a 7 o'clock hard stop. So I wanted to go ahead and have ELAP be presented first. And that way we'd have a chance to listen and make sure that we have time to vote on that. And then we'll see if Harold has had a chance to join in, and so that we can all vote on it, in, as well as the minutes after that, and then we can go into the presentations. So with that, Kirk, would you like to present the ELAP?
Certainly. Let me put up something real quick to share. There's the ELAP. Can you all see the overall ELAP map?
Yes.
Okay, good. Staff is requesting the Park Recreation Conservation Advisory Board to approve the 2019 annual report for the Jan K. Platt Environmental Land Acquisition Protection Program. 2019 was a significant year for the ELAP program. In accordance with the new ranking and acquisition policy that was approved by the board in 2018 to better align the program with the ELAP strategic plan, in 2019, all ELAP sites were re-ranked in accordance with this policy. These categories include special sites which have ecological landscapes or existing public recreation, such as Lake Park and Lithia Springs. Essential sites, which are the 5 highest ranked. Important sites, which are the next 10 highest ranked sites. And desirable are the remaining sites. Sites approved for preservation, but the owner is not willing to sell at this time, are ranked as provisionally suspended. And when the owner is willing to sell, they are ranked in accordance with the policy. Lake Park and Lithia Springs are currently ranked as provisionally suspended. Sites that have been developed to the extent that they are no longer viable for preservation are re-ranked as suspended. The 2019 was the last public nomination cycle. After more than 30 years of nominations, it was felt that the county had been sufficiently evaluated by the program. Any new nominations are presented to the ELAP General Committee, so there is still an opportunity for the public to submit sites. In 2019, there were 10 nominations for the final nomination cycle. 3 sites were already approved for preservation. 4 of these nominations were adjacent to existing sites and were addressed with boundary modifications, and the remaining 3 sites were approved for a full assessment. One of these nominations was Egmont Key. Since the state was not interested in having the property in the ELAP program, it was ranked as provisionally suspended. There are 2 new sites, the Walton Acquisition and the Knights Griffin on Knights Griffin Road, south of Lower Hillsborough Green Swamp, and Simmons Hammock Greenway, which is south of I-4, east of the Way Station, and north of Just Walton Road. These appear on the map that's on your screen. Staff boundary modifications address corridor connections, site management issues, and ecological objectives. 6 sites were reclassified as suspended because they were substantially developed or fragmented by development. Multiple sites had boundary reductions due to development. As part of the boundary modifications to expand certain sites and their potential ecological functions, agricultural buffers had been added to the adjacent site to acquire and restore. This means that they're not going to be acquired to keep as agricultural uses. They're going to be acquired and restored to natural habitat. This primarily happened in the Little Manatee River Corridor addition and portions of the Little Manatee River. Between the additions of the agricultural buffer restoration and agricultural buffers that were developed primarily as solar farms, there were no agricultural buffers approved for preservation. In 2000,
I'm sorry. Are you guys seeing a map on there? I'm not seeing one.
It was on a second ago, then it went, there it is.
There it is. I'll say, so you see my text when I pull it up?
I just see Grace.
Do you see the map now?
I see the map.
The map now.
Okay.
The map.
How about now?
No.
Okay. I'm going to have to wing this a little bit. Now, do you get a split screen effect?
No.
Okay. In 2019, the state had not provided much funding towards joint funding. And the only joint funding opportunity that we currently have is through the Gulf Consortium, which is managing the Deepwater Horizon settlement. One of the most important events of 2019 was that the board issued bonds so that we now have $67 million towards the acquisition of ELAP sites. This had a very significant impact in the program. At the start of on October 1st of 2018, we had $250,000 left in bond proceeds from the prior bond issue. We acquired approximately 160 acres and 3 different parcels during the course of the year. Most of it was financed with interim funding from in anticipation of the bond issue. Since October 1, and you'll really see this in next year's ELAP and the next year annual report, we have acquired approximately 150 acres at a cost of $2.2 million. We have nearly $13 million worth of contracts out there for 550 acres. One of these contracts, I don't know if you've heard about the proposed development of the Upper Tampa Bay Trail in Citrus Park. One of those parcels is actually taking a portion of that, that's under contract, takes a portion of that property that was proposed to development. That development would have resulted in most likely in at least one trail crossing. We have another parcel under contract and the more northerly parcel we're looking at, but it would be hoped that with these acquisitions that any future development would have a minimal impact on the trail, if any. Staff is available to answer questions about the ELAP annual report. The 2 new sites, let me see if I can pull those up real quick.
Greg, you might want to mute your mic.
Here's the actual ranking of the current sites that you're approving. The registry has been updated, of course, and we provided those to you. And here are the 2 new sites. This is the Walton acquisition, and the gray area to the north is the already preserved Lower Green Swamp Preserve. And then there is the Simmons Hammock Greenway, which is a montage of parcels. It meets the qualification, but it is just ranked as a desirable site. Staff is here to answer questions, comments.
Thank you, Kurt.
And I had one other thing, and I'll have to pull up because I don't have it to memory real quick. Ross has been very busy this year. Since the last annual report, he has successfully prescribed burns on almost 6,600 acres, installed 4.1 miles of fence, maintained 450 miles of fire lanes, treated almost 3,500 acres of invasive plants, and he established Trail Cats, County Associated Trail Steward, a volunteer program to maintain hiking trails on preserved lands. So he's been real busy too.
Now, Jack and Joe, both of you serve on ELAP as well?
Yes.
Okay. Did either one of you want to also provide any comments regarding the report?
No, I mean, I just want to make sure that the other parks board, me being introduced to ELAP a decade ago, or probably longer now, because of my association with the Parks Board, has been one of the best things that I felt have done. as public service for Hillsborough County. I mean, ELAP does so many, as protects so much. What is it? 62,000 acres, Kurt?
About that, yes, sir.
Yeah. So I mean, they have saved, our aquifer. They have saved so many species from being run out of our county. I mean, the environmental impact for us and all future generations is absolutely amazing. And we're a trailblazer, if you excuse the pun, for counties all over the country. I mean, we've got one of the most aggressive programs in the country, and I'm really proud of Hillsborough County and certainly all the dedicated folks at ELAP. I've just sort of tagged along for a ride. Now, Mr. Guidry up here has been involved longer than I have, but I'm hoping that by unanimous consent, we can send this over to the Board of County Commissioners.
One other thing I would like to relay, Jack, is that these sites are also well used for recreation. Ross and Forrest were talking about the literally thousands of emails they got during the closure during the COVID period about people wanting these sites to be open for hiking and such.
Yeah, there's hiking, there's horseback riding, there's bike trails. I probably more than I can even think of that are other services, that passive use services for all this protected land. And I just can't believe we pay Ross a salary since he enjoys burning stuff so much.
Joe, any comments?
Yeah, I just, I don't know if I had some computer problems. So I had to rejoin. It sounds like I've created a problem on the sound here. I don't know if there's any way to fix that, but anyway, very quickly, I'll say what Jack said is great. It's a great program. The county's done a wonderful job. Citizen run. They don't take land that people don't want to sell. And it's just remarkable what they've achieved. Did that work? Did you hear me?
Yep, heard everything you said.
All righty. I'm sorry,
Welcome.
I had some sort of technical difficulty here. My screen blacked out and I had to rejoin the meeting. I think I rejoined twice. Sorry.
Well
Well
Harold, I
said,
saw you
Joe.
join the
Thank you.
meeting. Just Harold, to give you an update, we moved ELAP up to the top of the agenda because Nathan was going to have to head out most likely before our meeting was done. So we just reviewed it. Do you have any questions regarding it before us voting and accepting?
No, we can move forward.
Thank you. All right, do I have a motion to accept the annual report?
I'll make a motion to accept.
That's Joe's motion.
This is Nathan.
Second.
Second.
Nathan will second. All in favor? Actually, I have no idea how we vote. We just raise our hand.
Anthony, what we did in ELAP, what
Okay.
Jan Smith did, and it worked out pretty well. She asked if there was any objection, and she did basically a negative vote as opposed to a positive vote.
Perfect. So if you, when we go to vote on anything, if you could turn your mic on if you object, and otherwise we'll have total approval on it. So on the annual report, if anyone objects, please let us know now. All right, so the motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kurt. Thanks to the whole team.
Kurt, thank you. Yes. And you guys don't have to hang around if you don't want to. So.
Okay, thank you.
Next, I'll go ahead and move to the minutes. Did everyone have a chance to review them? Anyone have any questions, comments on them? If not, I'll take a motion to accept the minutes.
I move acceptance of the minutes.
Jack made a motion.
It's Aaron, I'll second it.
Aaron will second it. Are there any objections to the minutes? With no objection, we'll accept the minutes. All right, and on that note, I guess I should have still done the welcome before. So welcome to everyone for this very unusual meeting. We'll have further discussion regarding future meetings later, but for now, we'll go ahead and move right into the reopening status. Is that Rick Force?
Hey, Rick, I'll go ahead and go first. So as far as the conservation parks, nature preserves, and boat ramps, we are fully open at this point. There is one caveat. There are certain amenities within each of the parks that are going to be closed for an extended period of time. That would be our picnic shelters, playground equipment, our 2 nature centers, any areas where more than 10 people can gather or are basically built or made to gather. We're going to have those closed at least for the next couple of months. We're not taking any shelter reservations, no reservations for the nature centers. We'll see if that changes at some point. But honestly, I don't see those particular amenities or facilities opening for several months at the earliest. But other than that, all the parks are open, trails are open, boat ramps, and I think did it in a pretty record time. You figure we closed everything on March 21st, and now we have everything back open on June 15th. So, a little over 10, 11 weeks, we got everything back open.
Great. Jack, I noticed you had your hand up.
Yeah, just out of curiosity, and this is really for both sides of the house, but I did hear we had a quarantine situation at one park because of some positive tests. Have we had many employees testing positive?
So, Jack, we have had 3 employees test positive. So that has necessitated additional testing of 7 employees. We're still awaiting results of those tests. Primary park affected was Upper Tampa Bay. But we're hoping to have those results tomorrow or Thursday at the latest for the other employees. And we're still covering the park. We have 2 employees from Lake Park and 1 from the Upper Tampa Bay Trail that are covering Upper Tampa Bay. So the park is still open.
Wow. Good job. I mean, I just can't imagine on top of everything else, all of a sudden having to worry about the health and spread amongst the employee base.
Yeah, I tell you, it's something that I've been dealing with for the last couple of days. And just when you think you kind of have it under control, you hear that somebody else has tested positive. And of course, whoever they've been around, has to be self-quarantined as well. Of course, I'm in that boat right now. I'm working from home under that quarantine, along with 2 of my colleagues. I think everything's okay, but you just never know. So just the strange times we're in.
Forrest, what is the testing approach? Is it someone has to show symptoms or what is the approach for all the facilities?
So there is a protocol for entering our county facilities. You have to have your temperature taken. Obviously, if you don't feel well, you're not supposed to come into work. Of course, in a couple of these cases, people did the right thing. They went to the doctor. They weren't feeling well. They were told that they did not have COVID symptoms, but lo and behold, 2-3 days later, they showed signs of COVID. So I've just sent an email out to all staff today saying that if you feel ill at all, regardless of what your symptoms are or what your doctor tells you or doesn't tell you, just stay home. Do not come to work. Doesn't matter if it's a stomach virus, it could be anything. Just don't come to work. And hopefully the people will heed that advice, and then we can sort of stop the momentum that this seems to have gotten here in the last couple of days.
Oh, thank you, Forrest. Rick, do you want to address that same question before you go into your update?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are pretty much all open with the exception of the same amenities as Forrest. We haven't opened our playgrounds, our picnic shelters, our skate parks, or our outdoor fitness equipment. Our rec centers are only open for our summer camp right now, because the recommendation that came when we proposed to do summer camp was that only the children and staff would be allowed in the centers, and that's what we're comfortable with. So we're happy to be able to provide that service to our citizens, and everything is going well. We have not had, and I feel like I'm jinxing myself saying this, guys, but we have not had one incident or really, well, we've had one employee. I take that back. It wasn't really work related. It wasn't that he came to work or anything, but someone had attended an event where they had heard someone was COVID positive. So fortunately, that employee advised us of that, and he is currently quarantined. But that's the only incident we've had. We haven't had any incidents in the workplace that have led to, several staff being quarantined at the same time. So,
and that individual hasn't tested positive. He or she is just self-quarantining as a precaution.
Correct.
Okay.
So we've had, the city of Tampa's had a couple sites go down. City of St. Pete has had a couple sites go down, and so far our staff is doing a great job out there, and we've been on the lucky side.
Okay. And overall reopening, I know there was some discussion of not having a lot of the programs over the summer, and then that was modified. You want to give us an update on that?
Correct. So we originally, the staff, Adrian's team did a great job putting all the plans in place, and then the plug was pulled, no summer camp. And then a week or two later, I get a text message saying, we need to have a plan to open up summer camp like next week. And I was like, well, it's not going to be next week, but it could be in 2 weeks. So her team, what we were doing is virtual. So the plan was just to do virtual summer camp. So kids at home and parents at home could go online. So fortunately for us, we've been able to roll out, the COVID-19 version of our traditional summer camp. And we also rolled out a virtual summer camp. So if you haven't seen it yet, make sure you go to the web and you'll see our staff up there, and we're doing some virtual programming as well, which I'm personally really excited about. And I can have Allison send you guys the link.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Forrest's team is a part of that as well, I believe. If they're not up yet, they're coming soon with virtual hikes.
Yeah, Chris Kitty with our staff has been working with Dana and Brad on various programs. So we're definitely looking forward to that virtual component.
Yeah. And then regarding athletics, real quick, we have the team, the fields, teams back out there on the fields, just practice only. We came up with a great set of guidelines, Greg and their team, working with USF Public Health, the Department of Health, for the leagues to be able to at least practice. And the guidelines include, groups of 10 or less, you must social distance, limiting shared equipment, and quite a few other things. We can share all these documents with you guys, but I just want you guys to know that every one of our reopening plans is reviewed by USF Health. I'm working with 4 doctors over there to review every one of our plans, as well as our return to play guidelines were reviewed by the same folks. So, and I don't think a lot of other municipalities can say that.
Great. I don't see any hands raised. If you have a question. Yes, Harold.
Yes, good evening, everybody. Rick, how many sites are active, and how many kids do you have registered at the sites?
We're offering summer camp at 14 sites, and we registered a little over 600 kids.
Congratulations.
The numbers are a lot lower than what we would normally serve.
Yeah.
We're on a 9-to-1 ratio, and each room at our rec centers can only have one group. So we had to set caps based off of the number of rooms we have at rec centers, and of course, staffing, So the kids do not change. There's one coach with the kid all day long. And when the groups go inside and outside, every time they come back inside, they go to the same room. There's no rotating rooms. There's no rotating coaches. So that's why our numbers are significantly less, but they're doing a great job.
Dave, you had your hand up. I'm sorry, Harold, you go ahead.
Are you tracking the virtual numbers as well, in terms of how many folks participating countywide virtually?
We'll be tracking visits and clicks and all of that information through our communications team.
Awesome. And did you hire any summer employees?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. How many? I know you know.
Well, Adrian's here. Originally we were hiring, the 93 or 94 that we always hire. Then we had to go back and tell them all that they didn't have a job. And then we had 2 weeks later, we had to call them all back and say, we were just kidding. You really do have a job. At that point, I believe something like 70 were still interested. And since then, I know Adrian and her team have been bringing more on. So she's on. She could probably tell you exactly what that number is right now.
Great. Awesome. Okay.
Hey guys, how you doing? Yeah, we're close to 80 now. We have a couple that were still pending, but they've definitely expressed interest and we've gone through all the paperwork. So we're just awaiting their background checks. I don't remember that Rick mentioned, we also antibody tested, which is very different, all of our summer hires and our full-time employees. So we're proud of that. And we only had one come back with positive antibody, and we went and sent him for the coronavirus test, and he did not have coronavirus. He just had the antibody. So he was able to start a regular time with all the rest of summer camp. So, but we're hoping to continually bring them on as needed. The expectation is that obviously as coronavirus cases increase, that we may have a chance of people being out and missing. So we want to have enough buffer there so that we're not having to not provide a service to parents that we could ultimately provide as long as we have the staff there. So we're still working on that.
Great. Dave, you had raised your hand before. Are you still?
Yeah, just wanted to chime in when it comes to youth athletics. Out of all of our programs, 45 programs have been approved. They went ahead and turned in all documentation and whatnot to go ahead and get the kids out on the field. We have 4 leagues that have decided to go ahead and hold off and wait until the fall. One of those not starting their program until 2021. And then we have 4 pending. So a majority of our youth leagues are good to go. We've been doing site visits, and a lot of them, I'd say a majority of them are following the guidelines and doing the right thing out there. Few folks got a little overwhelmed not to handle it, so that's where the team and I are going out and doing a little training with them. But we're keeping the kids safe out there. We're trying to get them back out there. They're doing skills and drills and practices in small groups. Bottom line, it's no games or scrimmages or whatnot. But a lot of the leagues are just happy to be back on the fields.
Great, Aaron. I noticed your hand was up.
Yeah, regarding that, Dave and Rick, what's the timeline on no games, the restricted, the various restrictions that are out there? What are we looking at?
So we don't have a timeline right now. My timeline was a lot more aggressive than what we're getting support-wise from our health advisors. So what I've done is I've reached out to our health advisors once again, and I've asked for assistance on them providing us a timeline on when they feel we can return to competition for the different sports, because each sport is a different level of contact and, the inability to social distance, football being, the most challenging one. So I'm a little worried because of the spike in numbers that we've been witnessing over the last week or two, and how the EPG meeting went on Monday. I'm concerned that we may not see that approval for a while. And I know that's not what parents want to hear. My kids play sports too, and I can't wait to get out there and have a game or have a tournament. It's just decisions we have to make that are best for our whole community and
Sure.
not just for kids playing youth sports. So I wish I had a better answer for you. But unfortunately, that's where we're at right now. And as soon as I have an update, I'll definitely share it with you.
To that end, have we gotten any pushback from the various leagues?
Pushback regarding that they want to play?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I respond to emails all day long.
Sure. Okay.
Dave, you raised your hand. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
One just a little while ago, and it's not fun responding to them. A lot of them are the same people emailing over and over and over again, and we just keep responding with the same response because they're, when the governor made his announcement that he was lifting all these restrictions, everyone wants to point to that. But when you read between the lines, all he said was every county is different. So I'm lifting my restrictions, and each city or county is going to have to make these decisions for themselves. So that's what we're working through. And it doesn't help that Hillsborough County's numbers right now are going up every day. So we'll see where we land.
Dave, you had comments?
Listen, just to chime in with Rick, yeah, we are getting tons of calls and emails, and we're just explaining to them where we're at. And most are understanding, but we get a lot of questions about what's going around us. And unfortunately, we just have to talk about Hillsborough County and what we're doing here, and most are fine with it. These are league folks, and they're from the outside. I just wanted to chime in that the addition of opening up public use fields has helped out some for those individuals. Mom and daughter get out there to throw a softball or whatnot. Our public use fields are being used. We've opened them up. We're getting signage out to them, and they've been numbered. So to promote that public use availability of fields is out there. And I was over at Skyway this morning and saw we had a good group. Everybody was this distant along the football field, and I had a father with 4 boys out on the baseball field practicing. So that's happening throughout the county. So folks are getting out there and using those ball fields when they're available for public use.
Great. Aaron, I noticed your hand is still up.
Oh, no, I just forgot to.
Okay, just to make sure you didn't have any further questions. All right, if there's no other questions or comments on reopening, we'll go to park impact fees.
All right, Forrest, I'll go ahead and start. We have really good news on this. I'm not sure how many of you guys been following, but on May 20th, there was a public hearing, and the board they adopted our new study effective January 1st, 2021. So since 1985, our park impact fees haven't been reevaluated. And now, 35 years later, we have updated park impact fees, and it's significant. The amount that they've increased, we're essentially going from receiving $300 for every new home that was built to about $3,000. So I'm going to have Allison send out the study that was completed by our consultant that was presented to the board by Forrest and myself. So you guys have it and you can read through it. If you have any questions, let me know. And what the board voted on is to start the new impact fees at 55% starting January 1st, and then move that to 65% January 1st of 2022. And then at that point, they'll reevaluate. So they adopted the whole plan. They just didn't adopt the full amount. But even the amount that they did adopt is still a lot more money than what we've been receiving up to this point. Pretty much triple of what we've been receiving up to this point. So it's exciting for us to be able to really provide for our citizens, the park amenities that they need and that they ask for. With park impact fees, we can do anything that expands capacity. So, new synthetic turf field qualifies, LED lighting qualifies, which are two very important things on our side. But, building new inclusive playgrounds, those qualify. Building walking trails that don't currently exist would qualify, new shelters, just all kind of things that we really haven't had the money to do unless it was a project that was championed by one of the commissioners, because our impact fees, we get, maybe $1 million a year. Well, now we're going to be getting a lot more millions of dollars a year, and we can hopefully keep up with this growth and this demand. So I'll let Forrest chime in if he has anything he wants to add.
Yeah, thank you, Rick. And it's a huge benefit for both departments. The 10-year revenue projections, if you're assuming 100%, of course, as Rick said, the first year will be 55%, second year will be 65%. But if you can project, we'll say year 3, you go directly to 100%. Over that 10-year period for active recreation, which would be Parks and Recreation Department, you're looking at about 146 million during that 10-year period, and about 25 million for regional parks. So it's a great benefit for all sides. And as Rick mentioned, we have the ability now to finally expand capacity, whether on Rick's side, it's additional shelters or synthetic fields. On my side, if it's an additional nature center, again, expansion of picnic pavilions, anything that can expand and enhance our existing parks, we can utilize that money for. So we're very excited. Rick and I were joking earlier that we truly didn't understand much about park impact fees because it was such a minimal amount that we would receive on an annual basis compared to the countywide general or the unincorporated fund for funding our projects. But now that we have this additional revenue stream, it's good in two ways. Number one, it's good for us as our departments to expand existing facilities, but also it's good for the general fund and the unincorporated fund, because some of those monies that were taken from those funds to construct our projects can now be utilized for other county needs. So it's really a benefit in many different ways.
Jack, you had raised your hand.
Yeah, what you just said concerns me a little bit, Forrest, in the fact that I hope that we're not going to see a lot of this become offsetting to funds that you were getting from a different source. That most of this will be additional funds for you guys to use. That would be the hope here, I guess. I'm always concerned that some budget hawk gives you the same amount of money you were receiving year over year and just takes these park impact fees to offset tax revenue, ad valorem revenue that you were receiving. So that's of concern. And the second thing, and if that becomes a concern, it needs to come to this board immediately, please. Mm-hmm. But the second thing is I can really see the political pressure mounting as you go to 65%. And then so I think that we ought to make sure that at the appropriate times, this board writes a letter and speaks to this so that we can get all the way to 100% over 3 or 4 or 5 years. I think we just need to make sure that happens.
That would be great.
Yeah, Jack, I agree 100%. And the nice thing about the impact fee dollars is they can't be used for repair, renovation, things like that. They have to be used to expand capacity. So again, you can't sort of rob Peter to pay Paul in terms of utilizing this for any other expenditure other than expanding capacity.
And it can't be used for operating either, just to be clear.
Correct.
So that's great, but I don't want to build it. We want to make sure that we build it and then fund the the maintenance and fund the operations and those types of things. And this Parks has faced that in the past as well. But no, I think this was wonderful. I just want to get all the way, because we all know, I hope we all know, that this is not just parks. The impact fees on residential development has been stunted for stormwater across the board, for road impact fees. It has been locked in a time warp back in the 80s for a long, long, long time. And I'm glad to see this county commission understanding that, you know, folks are going to benefit greatly from moving into our wonderful communities, but we have to make sure we're funding roads and parks and stormwater along with building all these communities everywhere. So thank you very much.
Okay, I don't see any hands up for further questions, so we'll go ahead and move to the next update, the Bacchus Equestrian Center.
So we received a set of updated plans from Mr. Pepin back on March the 11th. The following week, we were supposed to have a follow-up meeting. Of course, the following week was when everybody went home for COVID, and we have not returned to meet with Mr. Pepin over the last 3 months. He has not indicated a desire to press forward with it, so to speak. So we're basically in wait and see mode at this point. I'm sure at some point over the next couple months, we will meet with him, even if it has to be virtually. But we still have the plans in hand. And as soon as he wants to reinvigorate the project, we'll be here.
So no, at one point we actually sent him a letter essentially saying you need to let us know by this date or it's dead, and then it came back. So as of right now, we're not looking to send a similar letter. You're just waiting to see when he wants to have that next meeting to go over the plans.
That's correct. And I'll reach out directly to him through email and see when in the next month or so he would like to meet. The one thing that we have been doing is our parks planners and our part of our public works staff has been looking at the projects just for compliance issues and design issues and things like that. So there has been a little bit of movement there, but we do all need to sit down and meet and talk about the whole project again. So once this COVID thing starts to get a little less impactful, we'll start to move forward.
Jack, you raise your hand.
Yeah, sorry, this has been going on a long time. The proposal that you got from him, it must be somewhat more reasonable than the last discussion.
Yeah, so he has contracted with the son of the gentleman who passed away, and the plans that we've received are much improved over the last version. One of the nice things that he is proposing is a 100 by 200 foot horse arena for the Northwest Equestrian site. The one at Sydney Dover's would be a little bit smaller just because of the site constraints. That would be more in the 60 by 120 range. But yeah, as far as the quality of the plans and all of the design elements, much improved over what we saw a couple of years ago, which, you know, if I'm going to be frank, was kind of an embarrassment. And I think he feels better about these plans as well. And the cost estimates are much more accurate this time too. Before, he was looking in the $600,000 to $800,000 range to try to construct just one facility. Now he's more at like 1.4 million, which is realistic.
Okay, that's good to hear. I was going to appoint Pete Fowler as our liaison and negotiator because it's been going on so long. But no, this is good. Listen, let's look for a win-win here if we can, Forrest. I mean,
yeah, I agree. And I'll tell you, the last thing we ever expected was for Mr. Pepin to come back with a revised proposal, but at the 11th hour, he did. And I think from what we've seen so far, and again, we just received these latest plans on March the 11th, about a week before we kind of closed everything down, at least from being in the office. But pleasantly surprised by what I saw in those plans. And as soon as we get the comments back from our public works folks and parks planning design folks, we'll make sure to share those with Mr. Pepin and have a follow-up meeting.
Oh, so now we know really and truthfully what $1 million view looks like.
Yeah, yeah.
A multi-million-dollar view.
Well, yeah, and it's going to be, I think, well over $2.5 million for Mr. Pepin, because you're talking about 2 facilities.
Yeah.
So,
all right. Well, good luck with it. Keep us informed.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Before we move to AEDs, I want to go down to the last item on there called possible bylaws change. I had added that to the agenda when it was looking as if we were continuing to push our meetings forward. And the bylaw change that I was going to bring up related to that we had to meet at least 8 times in a year. And it was looking as if we may drop below that. Each of you have had a chance to look at the new board meetings dates that is in the eDocker link that was presented to you. We have today's date for a meeting, and then the next meeting that was already scheduled was July 9th. So that isn't even a full month. So our options, if we at this time still believe that we can make all the dates, for those of you who don't have it in front of you, the meetings, obviously today's date, or then July 9th, August 20th, October 1st, November 12th, and December 17th. And I wanted to bring, the reason why I jumped to this item is because we have all the board members on hand right now. I wanted to make sure that either we were comfortable with the rest of those dates and still believe we could get 8 meetings in, or at some point, if we believe we're not going to be able to get 8 meetings in this year, we'll have to make an adjustment to the bylaws to either reduce that number from 8 to 7, or have some kind of caveat that says when there is some impact that causes us to not be able to have a meeting, that won't be factored against us in the number of meetings that we have in a year. Any board members have any comments or questions on?
I suggest, I suggest that we can convene a meeting virtually on July the whatever that was. And unless we have something before us, we can also then just unconvene that meeting. So we hit our bylaws restrictions. I don't think there's any reason we can't hit 8 if we're all willing to do it virtually and all willing to get together for, I don't know, 5-10 minutes. And then, if we have business before us, we can pile those up in whenever the next date is. But that would be my suggestion, other than going through a bylaws change and having to run it up and down the flagpole at the county center.
And the other, thank you, Jack, and I agree with that unless any other board member has an objection to that. And also, based on where we're at today, the plan would be to have them all online until the county gets to go ahead that essentially all their meetings are back in person again. Does anyone have any objection to that? Okay, then we'll keep the meeting dates as they have been adjusted on the document on the 2020 meeting dates, and we won't make any adjustment to the bylaws at this point.
The only thing we will have to do, Anthony, is we will have to open up, if we have a meeting, we got to publicize it. And if there is public comment, we would have to address that public comment, even if we have no other business before us.
Agreed, which Allison, if you want to talk to this, but essentially this was advertised, and each individual that was going to be attending had the opportunity to submit their comments ahead of time. And I think, Allison, you're still looking to see if there's any comments that come up during the meeting as well, correct?
Yes, this meeting was pre-advertised on the county website, and no comments have come in yet, but the the next meeting is going to be at our normal day at our normal time. So that one, might have comments because it was pre-planned, whereas this one popped up. So maybe people weren't sure about it, but it was pre-advertised on the county website.
Okay, great. All right, well then, there's no other comments or questions. We move back onto the agenda. Item AED and Parks update. Is James usually the one that updates us on this, or I forget who?
Yeah. And he's trying to talk, but we can't hear you, James.
Okay. I see him. It shows his mic's off. Now it's on.
There we go. It kept turning itself back on and off. Okay, so we've reached out to several organizations. Allison's been assisting me with the contacts of the other organizations. The city of Tampa, as far as AEDs are concerned, they require all their leagues bring their own AEDs, and it's actually part of their agreement where they have to supply their own AED in order to establish a league at a city of Tampa site. As far as other organizations that we're seeing throughout the state, a lot of them, they're able to acquire AEDs through their fire rescue, either for county owned concession stands or on small occasions to leagues, but we don't see a widespread instance where the county or the city is providing AEDs for the leagues themselves. But oftentimes it is part of their contract in order to use public property. They have to have one of those as part of their organization. What we have done is we've created a spreadsheet and contacted the leagues. Dave and Eileen have reached out to the leagues to find out who already has AEDs, and we rank them according to that. Those that have multiple AEDs on one park site, not necessarily because there's multiple leagues there, but if there's multiple AEDs there, then we push them as far down on the list as possible. If they already have one AED, then they're in tier 2, and then the folks that don't have any AEDs, they're at the top. So we had the funding to go ahead and purchase 5 portable AEDs. So they have a Pelican hard case that's weatherproof, that can be brought out to the practice fields or the game fields. But we're not going to be able to impose any expectation that those are going to be readily available, because of the fact that they're going to need to be locked up due to the cost of the machines and kept in air conditioning. If a league board member is not on site that has access to where they're kept, they may not be available for that practice or that game. And if we're to purchase one for a site that has multiple leagues, they would have to come up with some kind of sharing system where they would each have access to the location where that would be locked up, or one league would be in charge of it and would have to make sure they had a representative on site when the other league was in play. So there's a lot of stipulations around that we're still trying to work out, but we do have 5 of them on order. We selected those leagues based off of not having one on site, and we started with the leagues that had multiple leagues at one park site that already did not have an AED on site. So we were able to find 4 that fell into that category. And then the second tier is based off of attendance for games and practices, number of kids in the league, overall size. We wanted to make sure that we kind of ranked them to move those up to the top. So the 5 that we selected are Summerfield, North Brandon, J.C. Hanley, Orange Grove, and Schimberg. Sorry. And those, we don't know exactly when they're going to be in because they don't have them all in stock from where we ordered them from because of COVID. Everything's slowed down. But hopefully within the next couple of weeks, those will be in and can be issued out to those various leagues.
Okay. Any comments or questions? Don't see any hands up. Okay. Thanks for the update, James. Next, Paralympic Sports, Tampa Bay.
Hi guys, it's Adrienne again. So I believe I'm the one that's going to be speaking about our Paralympic Sports, which is no longer called Paralympic Sport Tampa Bay. We renamed them. Now they're going to be the Hillsborough County Adaptive Sports. So our communications team, once we received information from Paralympic Sport Tampa Bay that they were dissolving, we were told we needed to come up with a new name, and that was the name that was agreed upon amongst our communications for Hillsborough County and our staff that are going to be leading the program. We felt like it definitely speaks for itself, that it's a Hillsborough County organization, so that's great. That's what we want everybody to know, whereas Paralympic Sport Tampa Bay could be misleading. You could think it was maybe a City of Tampa program or a private group. So we've changed the name to Hillsborough County Adaptive Sports, and our communications team will soon be distributing out communication. Unfortunately, all of this happened right around the time of coronavirus, and so the focus for Hillsborough County Communications obviously became coronavirus related and COVID-19 updates. So they're going to be doing a strong push with that when things start to return to normal. We also have quite a few new members on our team. One of them being our lead, Caleb Shalacy. He has been with us. He was originally hired by Andy, and Andy handpicked him, and he obviously made a good choice because soon after we kind of converted him over into recreation, and he got the opportunity to run Brandon region as a supervisor, which was a great experience for him. He got to see both sides, not only our therapeutic side of working with the athletes and the programs there, but then running an actual center. So when the opportunity became available to run All People's Life Center, he came over, he took that job, and we're happy to have him. So since then, he has not only made quite a few changes, but also brought on quite a few new hires. We've had some vacancies come along the way throughout all of this, and different people transfer into promotions and other things. And through it all, we've been able to go from 0 certified therapists in our department. We used to look to Andy for advice on all those things because he had a lot of experience, and he was formerly a certified therapist when he was first hired, but he had let that certification go along the way. So we went from having none in our whole department to now we have 3 on staff and 2 more that just accepted an offer. So we just have to get them fingerprinted and onboarded. All of them, well, not all of them, but 1, 2, 3 of them all come from the University of Toledo. So once we hired Caleb, he was able to recruit a former volleyball star that married one of his baseball buddies at University of Toledo, who was also a certified therapist, recreation therapist, a CTRS. And then when she was hired, she was able to kind of recruit one of her former volleyball girls that's also a CTRS. So we have 2 former volleyball stars and a former baseball player, a lot of athletes, a lot of people with a lot of passion, and they're very comfortable with all the terminology, and that's great when you've got people with that expertise and that passion all combined into one. So we're really blessed to have them all. Along with that, we've come up with a really great pre-post test. It's this assessment process that you can't really do without true certified therapists. So now that we have them all, we're able to assess children as they come into our programs and athletes as they come into our programs, and come up with a plan that somebody with a current education that's continuing on that education throughout, year to year, they come up with this plan to address any of the weaknesses that this person may have and help them grow through those weaknesses and help, aid them into becoming stronger. So we're excited for that. And they put this plan in a book. And then as the children go through the programs, the staff that we hire work with them and these elements. And then we, post-test them at the end, and we can show the parents and the athlete how far they've come. So it's going to be a great way to share our story. So I'm super excited about that little piece of our recreation section. If you guys have, that's all I have to share. If you guys have any questions in regards to that, please feel free to ask.
Oh, I missed a hand. Jack,
Yeah. Adrian?
Yes, sir.
I hate when you do that. Are we going to be able to, we'll be able to serve more children maybe this way with more certified? Are you thinking of expanding the program? I mean, not during COVID, but ultimately?
Yes, we are. So there was some strict criteria in the past as far as who could really be a part of the program, and there still is, but to some extent we've been able to expand. There's a lot more comfort in the amount of experience that these young people with their certifications have. So they're not fearful at all. A lot of the experience they've had through working with other organizations. Mary Kales specifically, she was with another Parks and Rec agency, and she was a supervisor there doing therapeutic programming. So she's worked with all types of programs that we haven't even experimented with at this point, and she's eager to get some of those programs going. She's kind of lit the fire of some of our veteran staff as well as some of our new staff that's coming on board, and they're super excited about All Peoples. As they've come on board and seen it, they're like, this is a magnificent workspace. They love it, and we've also kind of hinted to the fact that we'd really love to expand All Peoples and eventually have a field house, and that's like their dream come true. So not only that, but just expanding out also our partnership that we have with the Veterans Hospital group over there. A lot of them have some former hospital experience. So they're like, why aren't we tapping into that? We need to do more with them. This is a great opportunity. So in the past, where some of our programs were strictly geared toward young athletes, and then we had, our wheelchair basketball for our older, adult athletes. Now they're not of the mindset of this is how we've always done it. They're of the mindset of what can we do? And I have this great idea. So it's really refreshing, and we're expanding to all different ages, all different types of programming, and we're just excited for what they have to offer. I'm not in the business of saying no either, so I'm trying to find out whatever they bring to me. I'm like, okay, I love it. Let's see how we can make this work.
Okay, a couple of quick questions.
Jack, real quick, Nathan had raised his hand, but I think he just wanted to say goodbye.
Hi,
gone.
Nathan.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry about that. I'm sorry, real quick things. I think we would like to meet your new manager at some point in time.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, Caleb Shalacy. Yeah, we could definitely bring him on board our next meeting.
Well, okay. I mean, I don't want to make him endure too many of these, but the other thing was Paralympic Sports as an organization used to provide us with travel events. What's going to are we replacing this? Is there a national organization that will replace this that we can participate in as far as competitions?
Yeah, so we've been doing a lot of research in regards to that. I had actually asked Andy that question before he left. If my specific concern was if we were not a part of Paralympic Sport Tampa Bay, would we not be able to compete at a lot of these competitions? And the ultimate answer was no. So there is no requirement to be a part of any of that organizations. There's a branding associated with a lot of organizations similar to them, and that's the benefit, is that extra marketing and branding that you get. Mary Kales did find something similar, and she's brought it to our attention. She works, she's in Andy's former position. So
okay.
She's she's in tune with all of these competitions. She's excited for them, and that's definitely not something that we're willing to give up. We still want to have a high-level competitive element to our program. We just want to be able to bring in more of the recreational participation as well.
Okay. My last question is, why are you ashamed of your young daughter that was lurking in the background? How old is she?
Come here, Micah. Come say hi. She's sitting right here. I'm like I'm doing all the sign language. That's why I turned my video off. I'm doing the whole like, go away.
Don't be ashamed of your
she's
children.
A good girl.
She's beautiful.
Yeah, this is Micah. You want to say hi? Hi. Say thank you. Thank you. Yeah, she's been at the park all day. So I picked her up briefly, ran her over here, gave her some pizza, and I was like, be very quiet for mommy, please. Be very quiet.
This is a long time to be quiet. Well, thank you.
I know.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I had the privilege to meet your whole family at the Advertisements run. That was very nice.
And yours too. You have a beautiful daughter.
Thank you. All right. Any other questions? Adrian? All right. Last thing on the presentations, the COVID-19 budget impact.
I raised this, Anthony. I just was curious.
Okay.
I was really curious if I've got to believe this county impact. And I'm just wondering if county center, their accounting department, their finance department, are we just waiting to see where the things drop, or are the tea leaves already being sort of spelled out? I'm just curious. We may have to wait till September, October, but I was just curious.
Forrest, right?
I'll start, and then Forrest may want to. Forrest, you want to take the lead on this?
Well, just real quick, I was going to say that we were told just last week that there are no expected impacts to staffing throughout the county. No furloughs, no layoffs are expected for FY21. We'll have to see how the economy rebounds moving forward for FY22 and 23. There are going to have to be some cuts for FY21, but it appears that most of those will be capital projects that will just be deferred to a later date. But the good news is that there are no anticipated furloughs or layoffs.
That is good news. Thank you.
Right. Same.
Well, one of the things we did with our capital projects, one exercise we did is we looked at how all the different capital projects were funded, and if there were ways that we could change the funding out to cover them another way. Management and budget was working on that, but nothing's been cut. So that's all good news.
All right, that's everything listed under presentations. Next is board member comments. I just wanted to, Rick, we had an opportunity a little bit to talk about what the Parks Department had been requested to do regarding COVID-19 and assistance with, I think it was some of the hotels or whatnot. Did you mention that Forrest's group actually is the one that handled that? Maybe you could give us some insight regarding what you were asked to do, what you're still doing, and that type of thing.
Yes. So there are two hotels right near the intersection of Bruce B. Downs and Fowler Avenue. I don't recall the former name of the hotel. It was, I think, associated with USF at one time. But anyway, there are two hotels that have been rented out by the county for a 6-month period. One is for folks that have tested positive for COVID-19. It's called the Isolation Hotel. And the other is the Quarantine Hotel for those individuals who have been exposed, but do not yet know if they're positive for COVID-19. Initially, the idea for the hotels was that they would be for the families of first responders, perhaps families of county employees. That has materialized to a small extent. but primarily the population there is now, I would say, a combination of homeless, generally just folks that are in need from the community. So it's kind of morphed into something that was initially intended for county employees, county families, first responders, to more of a community based asset for various individuals.
And what is your staff having to do? What's their role?
So their role is to basically assist the existing hotel staff with processing and getting folks into the motel. Of course, our staff, 7 of my employees working the hotel. We do have someone there at all times of the day, so it's a 24-hour operation. We have folks working typically 4 12-hour shifts. And again, we receive daily reports. I'd be happy to send a couple of examples of those reports to the board so you can see what a typical day is like at the COVID motel.
I just don't understand why this is a Parks Department. I'm sorry, this is a bit upsetting to me, and I can't imagine this is good for esprit de corps for the employees affected either.
I agree with you, Jack. Are these active hotels that are owned by corporations, or what's the situation with the hotels themselves?
So my understanding is that the county has rented these hotels, the entire hotel, both hotels, for a 6-month period.
When is the 6-month expiring?
September 30th.
They're going to have to renew that. There's no way that this is going to be done September 3rd. Should we start talking to someone about getting your employees extracted from there and they can contract in other ways? I mean, or is this something you want us to let lie? Because this bugs me, especially when they said open the parks up and get the camps going and make sure you have audio on all the trails and you've got, you can sanitize everything 15 times a day. There's plenty to do.
Well, Jack, you're right. There is, and we've opened up all the parks, but there is a thin line here. Very thin margin of error, as we've just seen with Upper Tampa Bay Park. You have one person test positive, and then all of a sudden your entire park staff is gone for 2 weeks. So, but anyway, going back to the COVID motel situation, we are working with VetCorps. So they are part of the team that's out there at the hotel. Our staff is more just for, again, what I call quality control, making sure that VetCorps is doing their job, hotel staff are doing their job, make sure that no one is accidentally exposed. It's been a learning experience. Now, I will say that initially the county looked at maybe bringing in the National Guard. This was several months ago to help provide security at this site. Then we looked at a private company separate from VetCorps. They initially expressed interest, and then I think for liability reasons turned it down. So, like a lot of things in government or business, sometimes at the very last minute, you're forced to do things that you may not necessarily want to do, but you have to do because you have no other choice. So we have Brad Reinert, who's former lieutenant colonel in the Army, and he and a staff of 6 others, ranging from park managers to supervisors, are working the COVID motels 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and probably will be for the next month or two. I know they're looking forward to getting back to their original assignments, and I wish I could give them an exact date that they were going to be released, but I can't.
I can
Aaron,
understand anything being a temporary release valve, but this is now some months later. It sounds like it's become a permanent fix to a temporary problem. I'm going to write my commissioner about this one.
Do you know, Forrest, I'm sorry, Aaron, and then Joe after, do you know that this has even been brought up to the commissioners? Do you think they're even aware of it, or has this just been within the county staff that this was decided upon?
I don't know about commissioners. I do know that the county administrator and the executive staff are aware of it. But to the extent that commissioners know, I'm just not sure.
Okay, Aaron?
Yeah, sorry, Forrest, if you covered this, maybe I didn't catch it, but what's the criteria to get in? Like, are people applying, or how does that work? Are they a few nights at a time, or is this, they're there for months?
So typically, the stay is going to be, 14 to 21 days, whatever that, time is for quarantine. Obviously, if someone has tested positive, could be a little bit longer because they have to be rechecked. A lot of this is being coordinated through the Department of Health. So that's where our staff comes in. We are sort of the liaison between Department of Health, Hillsborough County, and VetCorp.
Okay. Joe?
Yeah, I don't want to get off track, but did the reassignment of this personnel have anything to do with the closing of the nature preserves during this period?
The hotel operation did not. However, there were other COVID-19 operational duties throughout the county, whether it was warehouse duty, meal delivery. Rick has been quite involved with that, along with Greg Brown. They've been tremendous help in having to organize a lot of these functions. But the short answer, Joe, is yes, COVID-19 did affect the opening of the parks, at least on my end. But the COVID hotel staff that's there, that did not affect opening of the parks.
Well, one thing, and again, this is an emergency time and things have to be done, and I applaud everything the county is, how it's handled that. But I did think the next time something like this comes up, closing the nature preserves, and I know you had a lot of feedback about that, provided a healthy place for people to get out, they could social distance. And I was very disappointed that we, it's a great time to expose them, that we not do it. I'm sure there's reasons that I may not be aware of, but as somebody who uses them all the time and hikes in them, it was disappointing to me. But anyway, I just wanted to, I know in the future, I'd at least like that looked at.
Yes, sir. I appreciate that. Thank you.
So from the other board members, it's at this point, we're just saying that we want to reach out to our commissioners, just talk to them about this, write a letter about this, but not necessarily make any type of motion regarding it.
I don't, I'm just bewildered. I can't even imagine the liability if one of our employees gets sick or worse because they're doing something that's so far afield from what they were hired to do. I guess maybe government's different. If I sent an employee out to do something like that, they would be suing my bloody pants off. But I'm just aghast. I can understand stopgap measures in an emergency, whether it's a hurricane, getting guys out with chainsaws and trucks, or whether it's COVID and doing whatever you need to do. But months later, you should need to put in place a more permanent or a better solution than having parks employees running errands for the health department and COVID hospital patients. I mean, it's not something that we're trained for or should be doing on a long-term basis, in my humble opinion.
Forrest, they're not getting any type of payment adjustment for taking on that additional responsibility, are they?
Typically, they're getting 8 hours of overtime a week because they'll work 4 12-hour shifts. So there is, some incentive there. but again, it's pretty minimal when you think about the task at hand.
Boris, you want me to keep my mouth shut or not? I'm aghast.
Well, and I'll be honest, Jack, it surprised the heck out of me too when I first heard it. My reaction was very similar to yours. But I will say this for the county and for the Emergency Operations Center. That hotel is, how should I say it? Where our employees are stationed in that hotel, because of the way it's sealed off, the separate air systems, how nothing is interconnected, it's extremely safe. And I don't say that lightly. Our employees are never exposed directly to anyone that's actually staying in the hotel. There are hotel staff, which are in a separate area, along with what's called Vet Corps, which provides some of the security on the site. And they're primarily responsible for things like handing out meals, knocking on doors, taking care of unique situations. So while our staff is there, and it's maybe not the optimal situation, from a safety perspective, at least from what I've seen, from the changes that have been made to the hotel and again, the safety perspective in all areas, whether it's the air that you breathe, or the doors that you touch, what can or can't be opened, it is an impressive operation the way they've set it up.
It's good to hear that. But if you told me they were giving birding tours or talking about the plant flora around the hotel, I'd be okay with it. But that's not what they're doing. I mean, you are conservation organization. So
I know.
Okay.
I'm not gonna lie. I wish I had my employees back, but I am very proud of them. I mean, they've done a tremendous job, and Greg and Rick, they can talk to it as well. Their employees have done outstanding, and Greg in particular has coordinated a lot of the warehouse efforts, a lot of the meal deliveries, and James Crouch as well. So I really give those guys a lot of credit for sticking with it for now 11 weeks.
Now, Forrest, you haven't.
The Quality Inn West Wing Hotel on Fowler?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Okay.
Forrest, I'm sure you haven't had time to really research this, but I imagine that those type of hotels have been opening up in various counties or other municipalities. Who within those government organizations are running them? Are they also parks? I'm just curious.
That's a great question. I don't have an answer to it, but I can certainly check into it, or maybe Greg or Rick would know. I'm not sure.
I'm not sure who else is doing it or who's operating it. So
Me either. I don't know either.
But Anthony, I can check into that. I'll let everybody know.
I think that would be helpful to know if this is, like as it was been mentioned, all hands on deck is helpful. And if you're hearing that other counties or municipalities are having to do similar things, is one thing. But if they're all doing it with a group that's makes more sense to get it put in front of it, I think that would be helpful for us and having some dialogue with our commissioners.
Absolutely. I'll check into it and I'll let everybody know in the next couple of days.
Great. Thank you. Any other comments or questions on? If not, then any other board member comments? I haven't seen any hands raised.
I want to thank everybody for being here at 7:25 of the evening.
All right. No other board comments or communication activities, staff member comments? All right, then once again, I want to thank Allison and James Brewer for helping us and putting this on, and also in Allison specifically and working to identify the available time so that we could finally get this meeting scheduled. And as we mentioned before, so we're going to try to stick to the regular agenda for the rest of the year. It's going to be currently planned on being online until we hear otherwise. And on that note, we'll adjourn.
Man, everybody, good seeing you.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good evening.